I'm Peter Haddock and I'm here with Lewis from the CPA, who's a decarbonisation and sustainability specialist. Lewis, we're here at the Site Sustainability Showcase. And starting here with Pro Electric, they're bringing new products here into the industry, solar panel, but also battery as well, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, so battery systems are getting quite popular in the UK market. They're a great middle ground, you know, you can pair them with generators to turn it into a hybrid solution. You can use them to buffer grid connections, so they're becoming really popular. And of course, if you then pair that with a significant amount of solar, then you're getting even more efficiencies out of that and even less engine on time, and making your grid connections go even further, you know, built-in on-site renewables.
And of course, there's more solutions here as well from the team with the battery system right behind you there. And of course, that can all feed into linking in as well with a diesel, can't it?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So, we're very conscious that it's an off-grid sector.
Yep.
You know, you don't always have a plug, you know, that got directly into the mains. So, you know, there is going to be an element of diesel on site for decades to come. But making sure that it's on for as little amount of time as possible and running as efficiently as possible means you can make a significant cut on carbon anyway.
You said an element word there, folks. We're going to go over to somewhere else. Follow us. Lewis, Element One is a massive industry collaboration that's happened with key players like PlantForce and Flannery in the plant sector, where we're dealing with the hydrogen, bringing it into the industry. That is significant, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, hydrogen, especially combustion, has some sort of good prospects for this sector. There's a lot of focus on residual value, you know, how much is the machine going to be worth when I go to resell it? A hydrogen gas engine has good potential there. It's just a case of, we've got to try and find ways to bring the cost of that fuel down. That's the main challenge at the moment.
And so we've also got to get it to the site. So this is where the Yelemco truck comes in, isn't it, Lewis?
Yes. Yeah, so Yelemco, this is 160 kilograms of hydrogen it can hold. So that will passively refill this several times over. It means that you've got a way of refueling on site. You can't have a pipeline going into the site. You can't build that into a construction site. That you need to be able to get the fuel to the machine. It's not, it's not as straightforward as a house where you can have a pipeline going into it.
CPA members, it's really important as well to look at how we do get this long list of people that are actually supporting projects like this. We've got Reynolds Logistics, Skanska, BRE, Flannery Plant Hire, GeoPura, PlantForce, Yelemco, and BAM as a Tier 1 contractor. Really important to see that, isn't it? And behind us, folks, we're just going to take a little walk that way because we've got something really interesting as well. Come on. This does what it says on the tin, doesn't it? It's a hydrogen power unit from GeoPura. They actually make hydrogen at scale just down the road from where the show is in Newark. That is really important to be able to get different use cases. Obviously, getting hydrogen cylinders to the site, they can do that here, but also then saying we can turn it into a power source as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the hydrogen fuel cell is actually quite good for a static solution. So this one is a fuel cell rather than the combustion that we've just seen. All of the tanks go on the back of the unit. It's trailerized, so you can just drop it on site as long as you've got the space available for it. It's a fuel cell paired with batteries is a very good option for power, just because the fuel cell itself is quite sensitive. It doesn't like big changes in power demand, doesn't like dust and stuff. So if you can store that energy in the built-in battery system in this unit, then you've got a bit more flexibility in how you can use that power, use it more efficiently, use less hydrogen, and obviously that makes it less expensive to transition to.
And the other thing about this sort of setup is we're talking about peak shaving and stuff like that to bring down the cost of electricity. We're also talking about how this can combine with other sources like solar and even grid connections to actually bring in a supply which is uninterrupted, and that's critical on some sites as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. At most sites, you know, you can't have the power going down. That's everyone go home. You know, the amount of profit you've lost that day, the margins that it affects, the budgets that have gone, you know, you can have significant delays from losing power on site. So yeah, they're building in lots of different options, just maximising the amount of power you can have on site, and ensuring that it's resilient, you know, making sure that there is that contingency plan if one of those systems fail.
And this is the big green machine from Flannery, a big plant hire in the UK that is actually taking on board the bigger kit from Luigong here. The 922 FE is actually a relatively small one in their extendable and growing fleet, but the battery powered equipment is really important. We talked about all of those energy stuff now, but getting that onto site and doing the job of a large machine, it's important, isn't it?
Yeah, and you're planning for it. You're figuring out how it's going to work differently from diesel. So, yeah, you've got 423 kilowatt hours of battery in this thing, so it's quite substantial. But as you say, 24 ton. You know, their machines go much larger than that. But you know, if you're going to use this, you need a significant power source.
Yep.
You preferably don't want to do that with a generator. You could do it with a hybrid setup, but you know, you want to move away. The whole point in using one of these machines is to not use diesel,
Absolutely, right? Yeah, of course.
And it's about picking good use cases. So, you know, if you're going to be doing breaking concrete or some heavy, long distance tracking, that's going to use a lot of power. So, you know, you're going to have to manage that. You're then going to have to think about fast charging. Where am I going to put the charger on site? How am I going to run the cable? For lorry load, yeah, it's a great bit of engineering, and if you're sitting on a stockpile loading lorries, that will last you ages. You haven't got to worry so much. You might be able to slow charge, but you've got to think about all of these things. You know, you have to consciously think about how you're going to deploy the machines, and that's something that the industry's going to be thrashing out over the next sort of for the foreseeable future.
And Flannery's doing a great job of that already, as are other other plant hirers, and we'll see some of their kit in a minute. But we've come over here, Lewis, because the other thing is, you know, we're talking about when we have kit on site, can we do the activities of what normally we would do on a project? And here's a great example of it. The massive crane here from City Lifting. How big is it, Trevor?
It's 46 metres boom length.
Yeah.
It reaches out to about 34 metres radius.
Yeah.
Very, very useful crane because it's very light on the outriggers. The latest thing with this one, the whole superstructure of the crane, the top of the crane, works electric only, doesn't work from the engine. So on site it does all the lifting, totally emission free and completely silent.
Fantastic. Thanks very much for jumping in there, Trevor. Again, Lewis, that is what we're talking about. And here again with Camford, when you're pumping a lot of equipment, you need again to have an ergonomic system and something that can actually work with a different power source.
Yeah, I mean, these are power hungry machines. You know, when a pump's working, it's working hard, it's not idling, and they're the most difficult things to decarbonise. So like with the hybrid crane, you've got a hybrid pump here, and again, you need to think about power supply. So one of the common challenges we have as a plant hire sector is, you know, getting the customer to install the correct sockets in where they need them. You know, make sure that power is all set up so that when we arrive, we can just switch over to electric.
And this is the Camford Iontron.
Yeah.
Well, fantastic name if you can say it, folks. And it's great to see a big machine like this again here on the display. So we'll finally wrap this up, folks, as we go and over and see some really interesting stuff that the hire companies are doing. Come on, let's go and have a look. So practical uses are already here, Lewis. And you know, when we talked about the power element, we've got the Farasin telehandler here from the Select Plant Hire team, but we've also got the Aman roller over here. So let's go and take a look at that, because it's a really good use case for the roller as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, rollers, especially on house building projects and things, you're not going to be using it more than 4 hours a day, even if it's working exceptionally hard that day. So you don't need as much battery life. You can charge it overnight. It only requires a small charger. You know, you could easily do this with a 7 kilowatt charger hanging on the side of a cabin. You don't have to have the charging columns. You know, so it's one of those that's sensible use cases where there isn't this difficulty in trying to figure out costs and things, because it's actually one that's relatively easy to adopt.
Machines, yeah, and of course we've got different machines of all shapes and sizes, and over here is another good example from the team at Lynch, because you know, when you're talking about larger machines, you know, we've got another electric here, but this time from Komatsu. You do need to have all the different shapes and sizes, don't you?
Oh, it's the most varied sector, you know, in the industry. So it's, yeah, you've got everything from, as we've seen, cranes and rollers to excavators. There's always going to be this mix, and everybody, you know, all those machines exist for a reason. If they weren't needed on sites, they wouldn't have made them. But so this one's, yeah, very similar to the Flannery's excavator, but the Flannery's is a 24 or 21 ton. This one's a 13. So this is the most common machine really that we see on sites, the 13 ton.
Fantastic. Behind us, folks, we've got welfare units with wind turbines on and things like that as well. You know, these are fixed assets, and you know, if you can go and utilise that, a two-storey is actually going to pick up wind and stuff. So again, there, the team at Nixon have come up with a cracking way of adding things to it, which doesn't really take away from the unit itself, but actually generates the power, so you're not using as much diesel. And if we're in remote locations, you don't have to take it there, do you? That's the critical thing.
And you probably can't quite see it from here, but the black bit on the top of that is actually a solar panel that fits flush on the container.
Fantastic.
So no extra space. You just plop it on the top of the containers, and it's modular. So
perfect. But the most important thing is, for what we need to do in the industry at the moment, is make sure that we've got the right applications for the right things. And what's really, we'll end on here, folks, is, you know, we have got the low-hanging fruit in the industry that we can look at, and that is switching over to things like HVO with the Ceratec team here with HVO. But again, fuel quality is really important, isn't it?
yeah, absolutely. And we've got New Era here as well. There's lots of HVO suppliers, and as long as you're getting it sourced sustainably, then yeah, that's often the only option for certain, you know, applications. You can't always use, you know, the zero emission kit. It's not as straightforward as you know, as decarbonising other sectors. So we do need some of these drop-in solutions, and we don't know how long they're gonna, you know, that's gonna have a role for. I personally think that we're decades away from completely getting rid of, you know, liquid fuels in the industry. So, you know, these are good options for where maybe you don't, you know, you can't run the cables, you haven't got the grid connection that you wanted, but you still want to, you know, reduce your consumption of diesel.
And that is why we've got a Site Sustainability Showcase, Lewis, and that is why actually you've got a job, which you've been in for a year now, and there's so much going on that we need to make sure that your members and then the rest of the industry understands what's available now and how people can actually utilise it. So the showcase, which you've helped to put together, is a fantastic way of doing that. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Peter.